Hi, I'm Kanupriya Sharma and I welcome you all to this video solution by GMATQuizMaster. We are now going to discuss a hard inference OG question. A very interesting fact about this inference question is that the two popular incorrect answer choices here together are more popular than the correct answer choice. Reason? These two incorrect answer choices are so well written, it seems that they are correct as per the passage logic. However, they are actually just very well defined traps. So let's start with passage analysis. Half of Metroburg's operating budget comes from a payroll tax of 2% on salaries paid to people who work in the city. So, from this, we can say that this Metroburg is a city. Metroburg is a city, and we are talking about the operating budget of the city. The passage tells us that half of this budget comes from payroll tax. And what is this payroll tax? This is a 2% tax on salaries paid to people who work in the city. So it is not about people who stay in the city. It is not about residents of the city. It is about people who work in the city. Now, the other 50%, from where is it coming? We do not know it yet. Let's see what the passage tells us further. Recently, a financial services company, so we are now talking about a financial services company, let's say FS, one of Metroburg's largest private sector employers. So, what does it mean? It means that a lot of private sector employees in Metroburg work in FS, right? So, if there are 100 private sector employees, then a large proportion of them, maybe 40 or 50 or 60 or 90, they work in FS because FS is one of the largest private sector employers. Announced that it will be relocating just outside the city. Oh, so it was this financial company was situated in Metroburg and now it is moving out. What does it mean? In the previous sentence, we read that Metroburg gets a payroll tax of 2% on salaries paid to people who work in the city. Now, as long as FS was in the city, FS was paying 2% payroll tax on salary, or the people working in FS were paying this payroll tax to Metroburg, so they were contributing to this payroll tax, they were contributing to the operating budget. If FS moves out, the people who would be working in FS will no longer have to pay this payroll tax to Metroburg. So the contribution of FS employees, that is the financial services companies employees, to payroll tax will stop. They will no longer contribute to this payroll tax, which means that this 2% tax on salary of these people will reduce to zero. The revenue from this 2% tax will reduce to zero. All the company's employees, so we are talking about all employees in this company, amounting to 1% of all people now employed in Metroburg. So now we get to know that all the people who are employed in FS, they amount to 1% of all people employed in Metroburg. So whatever this number here is, this is 1% of employed people in Metroburg. Now, a thing to be noted here is in terms of private sector employees, this is a large proportion, right? A lot of private sector employees work in FS. However, if you look at total employed people, that is private sector, public sector, everything, then these people who are working in FS, they constitute just 1% of all the employed people. So this is one thing that we get to know. They will be employed at the new location. So basically, FS, this company, will not fire any employee due to relocation. So this is what we understand from the passage. One thing is definitely the contribution of these employees to payroll tax, it will reduce to zero because they are no longer in the city. Now they may contribute in some other way, but they will not contribute to this payroll tax. Then FS will not fire any employee due to this relocation. They may fire because of some other reason, but relocation is not the reason behind, will not be the reason behind any such firing. One thing that we can infer along with these two is that the revenue from this from payroll tax will reduce because of this relocation. Now, it may increase because of some other factor, but this relocation will definitely have a negative impact on revenue from payroll tax. Remember that the overall revenue may increase because of some other reason. However, it will reduce because of this relocation. So, this is what we can understand from this passage. Now, let's think about what all things can be concluded from this passage. Let's quickly update the error analysis table, our bridge table, before we move further. So, if your understanding of the passage logic was similar to what we just discussed and you could draw the correct inferences, mark a tick here. However, if your passage understanding was not correct or you were not able to draw the correct inferences, you misunderstood the passage, you misunderstood the logic, you came up with incorrect inferences, or you did not draw any inferences at all, then mark a cross here. The reason why that happened, that is, you were not able to understand the passage, or you could not link the information that was given to you, or you could not come up with the correct inferences because of XYZ reason, mention that reason in this column. This reason will explain why you were not able to understand the passage logic. Now, what should the correct answer choice convey? The question here says, from the information given, which of the following can most properly be concluded? It is asking for a conclusion. However, whenever a question asks for a conclusion, we have to find an inference. That is something that is definitely true as per the passage. So the correct answer choice here will convey something which is definitely true as long as the information given in the passage is true. Please do not confuse it with the main conclusion that is given by author in other arguments. Those conclusions are based on assumptions. However, the conclusion that we are finding here cannot be based on any assumption. It has to be an inference. That is something that will be definitely true given the passage is true. So, the correct answer can be any of these inferences, a reworded version of these inferences, or something else which can be a combination of these inferences or a combination of these inferences with the information given in the passage. So, we will have to evaluate every choice carefully, reject the incorrect ones, and select the correct one. Let's get started with choice A. Choice A. Unless other employers add a substantial number of jobs in Metroburg, so this is an extended condition given to us that if this does not happen, we need to evaluate whether this is true. The company's relocation is likely to result in a 1% reduction in revenue for the city's operating budget. So let's say that other employers do not add a substantial number of jobs in Metroburg. We need to see whether this will be true or not in that case. This portion is saying that companies' relocation will result in 1% reduction in revenue for city's operating budget. We know that revenue from payroll tax will reduce because of relocation. So we can say that companies' relocation will likely result in reduction in revenue for companies' operating budget. However, will that reduction be 1%? We do not know that. The reduction, how much reduction will be there? The reduction will be 2%. This is the amount into salary of the FS employees. Now we just know that these FS employees are 1% of total employed people in Metroburg. It does not mean that a reduction in payroll tax from the for these 1% people will reduce the revenue by 1%. The reduction in revenue will come from this amount, and this is something that we do not that we cannot calculate. We do not have enough information to calculate that, so we do not know how much reduction will be there. We just know that this reduction need not be 1%. It can be less than 1%, it can be more than 1%, and that is why choice A is incorrect. If you selected this choice, you probably did not understand the relevance of this 1% here. You did not understand that 1% of the employees are leaving. The reduction is corresponding to the tax paid by 1% employees. It will not be equal, it will not necessarily be equal to 1%. The reduction will not necessarily be equal to 1%. You missed this understanding, and that is why you selected choice A. Choice B. Although the company's relocation will have a negative effect on city's tax revenue. So this portion is in line with our third inference. So, no issues here. The company's departure will not lead to any increase in the unemployment rate among the city. So now this choice is saying about talking about any increase in unemployment rate among city residents. We know that unemployment will not result from this relocation because unemployment of people who are already working with this company, that will not result from this relocation because the company has decided to employ all the existing employees in the new location. However, what about other people whose job is indirectly dependent on this company's location? For example, the food vendors outside the company, or the stationery suppliers, or the office space providers, and there can be multiple other people, cabs, transport, and a lot of other jobs that will get affected, that can get affected because of this relocation. So, can we be really sure that this relocation will not lead to any increase in unemployment rate among city residents? No, we cannot be sure about that, and that is why choice B is incorrect. Now, if you selected this choice, you probably did not realize that it is talking about any increase in unemployment rate among city residents. You did not think about what other kind of employments or jobs can be related to this company's location. You just thought about the people who are working there, and you thought that yes, this is definitely true. It will not lead to any unemployment, and you selected this choice. And that is why it is very important to understand the scope, the segment that is being discussed. The passage talks about all employees working in the company, while the choice is about all other people in the city. And you need to think clearly whether any other kind of job can be dependent on the location of this company or not. Let's move to choice C. Choice C. One of the benefits that the company will realize from its relocation is a reduction in taxes paid by itself and its employees. So, this choice says that because of relocation, the company and its employees will have to pay reduced taxes. Now, can we infer that? We know that the company and the employees will not be contributing to the payroll tax of 2% on salaries that was given to Metroburg City. That is something that we know. However, do we know what they have to pay now, or do do they have to pay to some other city, or what percentage of tax they have to pay now they have moved out of the city? Do we have any idea about that? No. And that is why we cannot say that the amount that they were paying in taxes will reduce. So that is why this choice is incorrect. Now, again, if you selected choice C, it means you did not understand the whole picture. You assumed that if they are not paying these taxes to Metroburg, they will not pay this much tax or more than this tax to any other city or any other body. And that is an assumption that you applied here, because of which you got this choice incorrect. Let's move to choice D now. Choice D, another popular incorrect answer choice. Revenue from payroll tax will decline by 1% if there is no increase in jobs within the city to compensate fully or partially for the company's departure. Now, again, just like choice B, this choice also says that the revenue from payroll tax will decline by 1%. We have already discussed that 1% employees are moving out. So, the tax paid by 1% employees will reduce to zero, which means that the reduction in revenue from this payroll tax will correspond to the tax paid by these 1% employees. It may or may not be equal to 1% reduction in revenue, right? So this choice is incorrect. And if you selected this choice, again, you did not understand that if 1% employees are moving out, the reduction in revenue will not necessarily be equal to 1%. It will depend on how much salary they were being paid, and the reduction may or may not be 1%. It can be more than that, it can be less than that, it can be equal to that. So this is something that is not definitely true as per the passage. Let's move to the correct answer choice, which is choice E. The company's relocation will tend to increase the proportion of jobs in Metroburg that are in public sector, unless it results in a contraction of public sector payroll. Now, if the situation is true, that is, if there is no contraction of public sector payroll, then will this information be true as per the passage? Let's see. So this choice is comparing the proportion of jobs in public sector versus private sector. So let's say there are 200 employees in Metroburg. Some of them are in private sector, some of them are in public sector. Right? They together constitute a pie. Let's say this is the pie. This is private sector, this is public sector. I'm just taking random numbers or random proportions here. Now, let's say 50 of them were private sector employees and remaining 150 were public sector employees. We know that 1% of the total employees, that is, two employees worked in FS, so they will move out. So this will reduce to 48. This we are considering the situation in which there is no reduction in this 150 because of this relocation. So this 150 will remain 150. So the proportion of employees would reduce from 50 out of 200 to 48 out of 198, because two employees have left here. So total will be 198. The proportion here would be from 150 out of 200, it would be 150 out of 198. So this will increase, right? Definitely the denominator has reduced, so the proportion will increase, this proportion will increase, this proportion will reduce. So it will become something like this. This will be public sector, and this will be the new private sector. So this choice, if there is no contraction in public sector payroll because of this relocation will definitely tend to increase the proportion of jobs in metro work that are in public sector, and that is why this choice is correct. If you rejected this answer choice, you need to understand why you rejected it. One very obvious reason is that you believe that choice B or choice D or even A or C, they were correct and you did not even evaluate it properly. Right? That can be one reason. The other reason can be that it talks about a different factor, proportion of people employed in public sector jobs. So this is not something that is directly mentioned in the passage. The other choices talk about factors that are mentioned in the passage, but they provide incorrect information, and you fell in that trap and selected one of those choices. Here, you felt that the factors that are being discussed have not been mentioned in the passage, so you did not even care to evaluate it properly. That can be the other reason. The third reason can be that you did not understand this choice properly. What is this trying to say? What does it mean? What is this situation? You could not understand that choice, and that is why you rejected this answer choice. So you need to find out the reason behind this, and then you can go back to your bridge table, explain the reason here, that why did you reject the correct answer choice. Also explain why you selected the incorrect answer choice, and then this table can be used to update your error log. Hope that helps. Good luck.